Scott, I know that Commissioner Yormark made some really strong and well-presented statements yesterday about the vision of the conference from your standpoint and being specifically and heavily involved with football. How do you feel about the idea of the Big 12 Conference in the current landscape of college football being the deepest conference?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. We talked about that last year as well. I think it played out that way. I mean, obviously BYU and Arizona State, where they started and where they finished, that's evidence of us feeling strongly about everybody in the league. I don't see that changing this year. In fact, I only see it getting better with the returning quarterbacks that we have, the great coaches that are in the league, the addition of Coach Rodriguez to the league, Coach Frost to the league. So there's a lot of great things that we feel strongly about. And competitive balance is always, I think, going to be in our DNA. And for us, that's a great thing. Great football at the beginning of the season all the way to the end.
When you look at the other Power Four conferences, specifically the SEC, who only plays 8 conference games, what kind of advantage or disadvantage do you see in regard to the Power Four conferences not playing the same number of conference games?
Well, it matters when you get to the CFP, right? More losses, right? If you play more teams, more conference games, you're going to have more losses in the league as a whole. And so that perception part matters. The CFP has historically been, a win calculated kind of thing. You get the most wins, you're in. And so there's a strategy to that, right? So how you compete in the non-conference matters. Who you play in the non-conference matters, but winning as kind of calculating wins and accumulating wins has been really strong. So as we look at the future of college football, I think that's why Brett's so adamant about 5-11 and getting more conferences to play the same number of conference games. That's a really, really important key to all of this discussion as we evaluate our position, others' position. Having an opportunity for everybody at the start of the season to make the playoff is a really good thing for college football.
Clearly, the removal of a Big 12 preseason poll was something that was not taken lightly. But when you look at what happened last year with Arizona State being picked 16th and BYU 13th and Colorado 11th, and maybe how that negatively affected the perception of the conference and the best team in the conference, how do you feel like that is going to help the status of the Big 12 moving forward, nationally speaking?
Well, I don't know that it's a tangible how it's going to benefit us. I think it just to remove something that potentially could be a negative, right? So whomever that team, if we would have continued, whomever those teams would have been at the bottom and they would have had a type of year that BYU had last year, then, we were kind of, it's a self-inflicted wound almost, right? So it was something we took a lot of time talking with our ADs about and our coaches about. We talked to some members of the CFP and how that discussion factored into their early season discussion. So all of that played into, I think, a decision that was the right thing to do for the league, given the landscape that we're in.
With BYU specifically, obviously 11-2, not a season that outside of Kalani Sitake and his team that many people expected. But what does that do for a conference when you see not just BYU but Arizona State and Colorado, those 3 teams going to the top? Like, was this a good thing for the Big 12, or somehow did this hurt the perception of the conference?
Well, great football never hurts the perception of the conference, and it validates our statement last year that we're the deepest conference. And I think you'll see that again this year. I think if you look from top to bottom, the teams that that people think are going to be good probably will, but there's probably a few others that aren't getting a lot of attention right now that are really, really good. We just don't know because it's hard to know who's on whose roster, and so you just go into the season, giving everybody an equal opportunity to compete at the highest level.
Brett Yormark said he wants to make this a contemporary conference. He's being very forward-thinking. In fact, there's a deal with the WWE now. Yeah, sure. There are some BYU fans that are legitimate WWE fans. How will that partnership work out moving into the future?
Well, we started a few years ago, if you remember, having the championship belt be presented to the most valuable player at the football championship game. We actually painted the WWE belt on the field 2 years ago. So this has been a long partnership. This is just another step in that direction, formalizing it. Having WWE's in Ireland around the Ireland game is incredible. there's only going to be more of this stuff with WWE, and it kind of fits Brett's vision for the league to make it more than just, a football league or a basketball league. It's a well-rounded global league, and you see that the games we're playing overseas. You'll see some others hopefully in the future in other sports as well that we're working on. So there's a lot to love about what we're doing, and it fits right in with, I think, who we are.
BYU has officially been a member of the conference for just over 2 years. It was July 1st, 2023 when they were officially integrated in. How is the relationship that the Big 12 has with BYU perceived at your level?
Well, certainly Tom Homo and the leadership that he brought to the league from BYU can't be overstated. His experience, his steadiness, and his just experience that he brought to the league was outstanding. Certainly with Brian alongside that, is not a new face. So, but BYU, I learned the passion of BYU fans when I went to the Holy War last year, BYU-Utah game. That was a great football game, obviously for BYU, but just for the state of Utah and what that game meant to both fan bases and what it means to both fan bases, having that as part of the league is really, really special for us.
Iowa State and Kansas State and Ireland this year, you know it as well as I do, BYU has an international fan base. So how do you see BYU moving forward? And I know you might not be able to reveal details, but how do you view them in the scope of future international competition?
Well, definitely engage with Brian on all those topics, not only in football but in other sports as well. I think he has a vision for BYU, and that vision is not just in the United States; it's certainly global in terms of athletics. There's a huge BYU following internationally. We know that. They're part of every conversation that we have. It's not an easy thing to pull off. They're complicated things, but rest assured that our conversations will always include BYU.
Okay, overarching question as we finish up. When you look at the transition from Bob Bowlesby to Brett Yormark and everything that has transpired with Commissioner Yormark in place and your expanded role as well, how have things changed the most for the Big 12 Conference since we had a switch at Commissioner?
Well, I was not part of Bob's team, so don't know. But I would say the change around us is college athletics, and having a leader that can not only see that and engage in that at a lot of different levels, and then do two things at once. Rebuild the league, which we had to, but also expand it and make it into a global conference. With all the things we're doing, with all the branding stuff we're doing, with all the commercial deals that he's doing. So it's a great time to be a part of the Big 12.
What's your daily schedule like with everything changing?
Well, it starts whenever he calls me in the morning, so it's early usually, and goes until we get done with the day. I tell my wife all the time, I never really finish. I just decide to leave. So, but it's great. It's part of why I'm so glad to be a part of the Big 12 Conference, because we're a leader in college athletics at a time when it needs leaders.
I wish you a restful vacation at some point before football starts up in a few weeks.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys in the fall.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, man. See you.